Are we just gonna have like a Sonic theme song chain going in chat? That would be awesome. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's TMC. It's been a bit. It's been a minute. I think we had like an entire week with no workouts, and I'm itching to go. I don't know about all you, but I really, really want to get back to this. So let's not take up any more time than we have to, and let's dive right the heck in with Caitlin. Whenever you're ready, go ahead and give us a cold read.
Okie dokie. Here we go. It was so cold that no one else was running, not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice. Next up is Sonic.
All right. Oop, oop. There we go. I hit like F11 by accident, went full screen. Like, no, don't do that. Okay. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of night. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogging in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depth of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice. I'm going to pick Joe.
I removed his name because he can't really stay with us. But Joe, did you want to read tonight?
No, I'm okay. I'll just listen in and comment if
Okay.
possible.
Okay. So
Uh, in that case, how about Tiger?
All right. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared the drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice. Let's do EVJ.
Jay, you there?
I gotta have to leave. I'll come back and read later.
Okay, no problem. Tiger, you're choosing someone else.
Let's not do BVJ. Let's do Sonic.
Sonic has already read.
I'm real good at this, guys. Don't worry about it.
I put the chat. It's in the chat. Okay, it's in the chat. That's all I'm gonna say.
Which is fair enough. All right, let's do Brennan then.
No. All right, Brennan, did you want to participate
No.
today? Normally he doesn't participate.
Oh no.
Tiger, you've been on top of it so far. You are 3 for 3, man.
I'm not going to ask you to pick lotto numbers.
Okay,
Seriously.
do me a favor,
counting.
Tiger. Do me a favor. Open up the chat in like the channel chat. I put the names there who are available to read.
Thank you. Let's do Roddy.
Okay, there we go. Roddy, go for it.
Give me a second.
Sorry, everyone.
It's fine. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at this time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowed down with each step as he approached the silver mound of snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depth of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into the pocket for the cell phone. The cry for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly behind a thick cocoon of ice. Sublime and vibe.
You there, Sublime? Okay, maybe Sublime might need some more time. Roddy, go ahead and choose someone else.
Gotcha. Cassidy.
All right, Cassidy, whenever you're ready.
It was so cold that no one else was running, not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice. All right, let's go with Andrew.
Okay. Just to let everybody know, Sublime is back. But yeah, Andrew, you are up next.
All right. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eyes. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked to the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice. I am going to say Michael.
Okay. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice. Alrighty then. Well, as a little redemption from last time, Sublime, why don't you go ahead and go next?
Can you hear me now? It
Yes, we
was
can.
so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound in the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into his pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
All right, Sublime, you're choosing who goes next. The last two are Amanda and Lil Rocket 685.
Go, Amanda.
All right, Amanda, you're up next.
Finally. Okay. So cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. There was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, then ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound in the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared and drifted the snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
All
And last
right.
but not least, Little Rocket.
All
What
right.
was that,
Can y'all
Michael?
hear me?
Yes, we can
Yeah,
hear
I
you.
can hear
No, I
you.
was just gonna, yeah, I was just gonna do what you did. So thank you.
Okay.
All right. So this is my first time. I just read the script
Yeah.
like I
So
see it.
this is the starting portion of our workout is always a cold read. So you just get through the text however you want to. Don't even worry about it.
All right. We'll fumble through it. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark. Wait, sorry. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looked, kneeled down, reached, fell back, gasped. The depth of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Nearly dropped my stylus here. All right. So now that we've gotten through all of the cold reads, let's go ahead and break the script down, shall we? Okay. So, what kind of script is this? I already kind of mentioned it before. It's also in the announcement for today's workout.
It's an
Voice
audio book.
through.
Voiceover.
It's an audio
Voiceover.
book. It's an audio book. Yep. Okay, so that means, yeah, what kind of microphone technique should we be using on this?
Voice over?
Voice under.
Zone one.
My
Zone
money.
one.
I'm going
Up
over.
close. Going over? Okay.
It's more intense. It's more intimate. You know, you're not like screaming at the top of your lungs. It's got to be like a subtle but intense read,
Okay,
whatever that's
so
called.
before we proceed with this, I just need to ask, just because I don't use the terms myself a lot, voice
No
over
problem.
versus voice under. Can we
So,
do that?
yes, voice over technique. So this is a general shorthand for microphone technique, and thankfully somebody did pull up the definitions that we use. At least, again, this is not a widely used thing, but voice over is where your performance, your sound is up front and most noticeable on the screen. So that would be used for things like heavy character work, something where you are actually in the scene itself. Whereas voice under is a technique that you would use to indicate something that's happening on screen. So that's generally used for audiovisual commercials or documentaries, things like that, where what the listener sees is more important than what it is you are doing and your performance. So that's the big difference between the two of those. It's a general shorthand for the kinds of technique that you would use, how close you would be up on the microphone, how loud you would be speaking. Voiceover is generally your standard speaking volume from your standard distance away from the microphone, usually around between thumb and pinky finger, although I'm a bit closer here. Um, whereas voice under, you would be a little bit closer and you'd be a little bit quieter in order to create this more intimate but less upfront sound. So now, with that long-winded explanation,
Yeah, kind of like what they were saying in chat, and it's I feel like it's kind of parallel because like Amanda had said, it's very kind of an intimate, personal moment that's not loud and boisterous and all that stuff, but you are the primary medium. You are the primary audio, like it's telling the story and everything. There's usually not a visual to it,
mhm,
so I think parallel's a good way to put it.
parallel. Okay.
Not my original content. That was from the chat. Just saying, I agree with it.
Yeah, Roddy, voice parallel. Got it. Thank you. Since you put that out there, Roddy, why don't you go ahead and define it for us, just so I know exactly what it is you're talking about.
I'll be honest. I'll be honest. I'll be honest. At first, it was the usual voice between joke, but now that she was able to go in depth into it, I can see the meaning behind it in terms of being able to border in between. I guess it would be able to find a stark balance between not being too overbearing on in terms of voiceover, but then again, not needing to be too soft in terms of voice under, considering like you said, it's an audiobook, so obviously we're going to be important, but that doesn't necessarily mean we need to be loud.
Right.
Let's call it voice neighbor, where
Voice
you're talking to
neighbor.
somebody and
Oh,
he's
Like a
like
good
neighbor
neighbor,
who's
neighbor.
right
neighbor.
next to you, like a good neighbor.
Yeah, exactly. No, no, from
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
yeah. Please don't copyright strike us. This is
Yeah.
just for a bit. That's all. It's all a joke. Please, please.
For legal reasons.
We do our own ad
It's
reads
just a farm
for.
But
in an anonymous state.
yes, that's right. Just because, so you can have a bright and bombastic voice under performance, and you can have a
Like a good
quiet and
neighbor,
controlled
redacted
voice
is
over
there.
performance. Voice redacted. So you're just gonna send them. So you're gonna do the entire recording. You're gonna finish all of the audio, and then you're gonna mute the whole track and just send them like an hour and 15 minutes of silence for the audiobook. That's voice redacted.
Maybe that's why they didn't pay me for my audiobook work.
I was
Dang.
using
Oh,
redacted as a
really?
substitute for a sponsor.
Hey, you're getting paid?
No, it was a joke. It was a joke. I just couldn't help.
Okay, okay. You see, I would say that the best way to approach audiobooks is as a quiet voiceover because you are painting the entire scene. So you are central to the listener's experience to this entire world. But does that mean that you have to be loud about it? Absolutely not. It doesn't mean that you have to be, um, bombastic and charactery through the whole thing. It just means that you have all eyes, all attention specifically on you. So take center stage. Be the presenter in this whole thing, and that naturally leads me to the next question: who are you in this scene as the narrator? Who are you?
on the audition notes, it's, emotional hook for one of the major characters in the book, told from the standpoint of her friend. So you are the friend of. Ooh, now I feel like I'm confusing myself. So y'all need to clear this up for me if I'm wrong, okay? But let's see. Hook for one of the major characters in the book, told from the standpoint of her friend. So we're the friend of one of the major characters. Is that correct, or am
Okay.
I
I think I want to bounce
butchering
off
that?
what Caitlin is saying. You're the friend who is called when this person found the body, and you are
Ooh,
retelling this to
Hmm.
basically the authorities or someone else, effectively.
interesting. Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah,
see. I
so
see.
this question doesn't necessarily have one single correct answer because an audiobook or a
I think a
narrator
little
in any
both,
book,
even.
if it's a third person omniscient narrator in any book, they are a character in the story. Like they do exist in that world, but they're separated from it for some reason. So they don't always take place like in the middle of the scene. Um, but the reason why we want to get into this question, and this is going to be, we're going to shotgun ideas. There's going to be a whole lot. So all I'm asking you to do is just be as creative as possible with this. Come up with a character that makes sense to you who would be saying this. Because again, there is no script out there that is not a character script. And it is super important that you establish who you are and why this is important to you, which we will get to later. But yeah, who
Oh,
I
is
I
this
I
character?
just had a thought, but I don't remember the movie or the novel it's based off of. What, Forrest Gump? I think it was, where it was like the friend was the narrator or something. I might be thinking of something completely different.
Gump was
I
the
don't
But
narrator
remember.
in
Yeah.
Gump.
Say
what?
yeah.
I
Oh,
I
what
see
was the actor? What was the actors in it? One of them was in the one of the old Spider-Man. Ah, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Well, think about it.
Kirsten
Think about it.
Dunst.
I see three perspectives.
Okay.
You have the character who is experiencing something. He's running, doing something. You have his internal thoughts
What was the
at a body, and then you have something separate, which is just a description of what's going on. The candy wrapper, these may be things he's noticing. It's not necessarily in his or her voice, just the narrator telling you what's going on, like a third person watching him in the snow, making the call, noticing. If you were watching it visually, you'd see the wouldn't necessarily hear his internal thoughts. You only hear his voice. That's the production did. But so I tend to split it into those three general groups. So you may have
that
50
figure.
characters in a book. Each
Hmm.
one may have his own internal thoughts, and then you have this overall narrator or outside view.
Hmm.
All right, I figured out the movie. It's The Great Gatsby, where Toby Maguire is the friend narrating the movie or being the narrator as well as being in the movie. And Leo DiCaprio, in this circumstance, is the person who found the body. If for those who have seen that movie, like you kind
Okay.
of know what the
Okay.
parallels I'm drawing.
Okay. It's like a second person perspective. Interesting.
Yes.
If
And
I'm being
that's something. Oh, sorry. That's something I was going to bring up. Um, with audiobooks, even if you're almost strictly like a voice of God, omnipotent narrator, it's still good to create some type of character that you can still play. It'll help you be more engaged with the material, and that will impart itself on the audience as well.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely a narrator putting themselves in the shoes of the person who witnessed, like, who was a witness to seeing that dead body.
Okay. So you could almost see it as like what, like a guardian angel. Like they're always with this person, but they can see not only the situation and how they're seeing it, but also what's going on in their head. Something like that. Because again,
I feel
all
like
we're
it's their
doing is
soul.
their soul. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the character. You're their internal thoughts. Absolutely. That could absolutely work. Again, this is just not everything is going to make sense when it comes to this. All right. But the exercise is to give you a standpoint to approach this from. So again. If something sticks out to you as like, okay, yeah, I can see that, make note of that for yourself. If you haven't yet, go ahead and open up like a Google Doc or a blank page in Word or something, and just start taking down your own notes for how you want to approach this.
Yeah.
All right,
I took
I
all my
see.
notes on my notes app on my phone.
Nice.
All right, I see two ways that this could be taken that would be interesting.
Hmm.
So one is the killer is recounting all of his mistakes, and the other is that the body itself is talking to the audience. Like, and this is how I died.
Probably wondering how I got there.
I
Yep,
was about to say,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like the next bit of
Yeah.
narration after this very serious, like very dramatic read is you
Yep,
hear the
that's
music
me.
come on. It's like, yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
And then there's a tone shift. Probably wonder how I got here. It was a cold, and it was a
yeah,
cold night.
exactly.
It was a dark and stormy night, not
Bombastic,
unlike this one.
serious. So Andrew, the only issue that I have with the first take is that you assume there's a killer.
That's true.
The
There's
killer
no
could have been natural
information.
causes, so
Yeah, I
heart
mean,
disease.
So Mother Nature
she
is
could have
recounting.
slipped. I mean, this could have been just a freak accident. She could have been out
Mhm.
walking around, and some ice might have slipped out from under her. She fell into the water and froze to death. So that's assuming there's a killer, and we don't have information about that.
That's true.
Just from reading it, it kind of reminds me of like a David Attenborough documentary. It's like some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. Where's the
Okay.
monkeys?
So
Something like that.
you'd be kind of like recapping this whole situation, right? So you're like a researcher looking at the situation.
Yeah, almost like a
Sure.
detective
Yeah.
is just like, as a matter of fact, here's the facts, here's what happened, and no like super complex details other than maybe the bottom part with the candy wrapper though.
I had something in mind.
Okay.
Our character, they were out running from something, but they were alongside their friend. Because it was, 6 a.m. and in heavy conditions of winter, they got lost.
Hmm.
Upon getting lost, looking for their friend, that's when the narration picks up. But they've been out in the storm for the whole night. So that's what I
Okay.
got from it.
Okay. So somebody looking for this person, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, like whenever I, read the audition notes up there and everything, kind of like Amanda was saying, I was picturing it more as like that the person who was experiencing this, like being them, like their soul, or just omnipotent to them, omniscient to
Hmm.
them, recounting it. But honestly, hearing some of y'all's perspectives has really kind of like opened up a couple of doors. That's it, there's a lot of creative ways to take those things. And
Yeah.
again, I had taken it straight verbatim what it was going to be. Obviously, we don't have context of everything, like it, but I really appreciate those unique perspectives. So thank y'all for thinking outside the box because that helped me.
Well,
I
I,
will
I think we've got
say,
it. Oh yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. Hmm.
I was just going to say, just thinking back to English class, they use a lot of third person pronouns, he. So always think omniscient in terms of third person.
Hmm. Yeah.
The dead
Absolutely.
body's pronouns were he, him.
Well,
Its pronouns were he, him.
well, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and actually break down the text itself, or at least look into it, and see what it's using to try and communicate like the specific things that this text is trying to communicate. Because again, this is all we've got. We've got the audition notes. We have this text. We know it's for an audiobook. But the thing is since we don't have the full view of what this story is supposed to be about, at least we normally don't have the full view of what the story's supposed to be about. We need to give ourselves some context wherever we can find it. And the thing is when it comes to audiobooks, you need to walk your listener through the world. You need to show them the little bits and details that the author wants them to experience. They need to see what's happening around them by your descriptions and your personal involvement in how the text unfolds. So, for instance, very early on, after the first, I think it's two sentences, yeah, after the first two sentences, it breaks into something else. So, what is happening with those italicized lines? Why are those important, and why is that written that way?
It's like inner monologue, I think. I mean, that's kind of what it seems like to me. That's what naturally came up is like, that looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't, self-talk
Mhm.
of whomever it was that encountered, the situation at hand. So
Yeah,
inner
it gives a
monologue.
better perspective as to, as to paint the scene of like what happened and what the witness who is to stumble across the dead body might be thinking at the moment. It's really to get you emotionally invested.
Okay.
And like
It's the
So then,
almost
narr.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Just saying, it's the narrator's opportunity to really immerse you in this particular scene.
That's what I was trying to say. I just couldn't find the right words.
Yeah, building on what Amanda in Sublime had said, kind of starting to put in that emotionality of like apprehension, confusion, building a little bit more tension before you get to the actual like ta-da technical term.
more ta-da. Okay,
We're like
so
dun
then
dun dun.
so this is the character. This is the character who you've just introduced us to as the omniscient narrator. This is their character's inner thoughts, right? This is their inner feelings. How would you describe these feelings? What is the listener supposed to get from your narration of this character's thoughts?
Well, again, I feel like it's observational, so it's giving you a little bit more um, information from their point of view. Putting you more into the scene, um, and it's building attention. There's there's apprehensiveness, confusion, and that's again kind of just elevating the emotionality of that. Like, oh, what? Like, hold on. Like, we were talking about running here, and now, we're saying that there's a body. So that's kind of like a little mic drop there of emotionality to get your interest peaked.
Yeah, what she said. Also, it's totally obvious that, it's fear.
I
I
think
wouldn't
Is
it
it
say
though?
could
anticipation,
also. Oh,
but it
God.
is a form of fear, but it's kind of like bubbling underneath.
Yeah, like I definitely
Like,
didn't mean like,
something's
Okay.
fishy,
oh,
something's wrong.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wasn't looking forward like, oh, I'm looking forward to this, but yeah, yeah, you got it. You helped round that one out.
Okay. So I've got apprehensiveness, confusion, fear. What else? What are some other things that are that
I
that
think it.
just that little section? Go ahead.
I think it could kind of tell you where this person's at in their life. Like I know it says innocence earlier on. So when it's like, oh, that's a body. Nah, can't be that. Like, what?
So
Why would
denial.
there be a body in the snow? I've never seen something that awful in my life before. And then he's like, wait a
Right.
second,
Yeah, like
what's
they haven't
going on here?
encountered something that terrible, right? So they're like, there's no way, like in my wildest
Exactly.
dreams, that could be what that is. Yeah, I like
Okay.
that.
Denial. Curiosity. That's interesting. Okay. I'd agree with that. Yeah, I don't think that fear would really necessarily be in here. I don't think it would have gone to the level of fear yet. I think it would probably be more shock. Like if there was going to be a fear-like feeling associated with this little block of text, I think shock would be probably closer to what the character's feeling.
That's the word I was looking for. Shock.
Glad I could help. Trepidation, that's a good one. Also confusion. I think we have, yeah, we've got confusion in there as well. Taken aback. Okay, yeah. Kind of kind of goes along with shock.
I'm gonna jump in with doubt.
Doubt is a good one. Yeah. There's a range of emotions here, but something that I want to make really really clear is both of the couldn't be's should be different emotions. They cannot be the exact same one because again, this is on both sides. Or this is sort of your character or this character in the scene's emotional journey through uh, something that they've seen, trying to get a hold of things. Um, So make sure that when you are reading this as your character or as this character, that their emotions evolve. The other thing is feel free to take a little bit of time as well because emotions take time to feel, and that's going to help build the tension that your listener is going to be experiencing through this because you're setting up this the latter half of the next paragraph. So always be careful and take your time when it comes to expressing emotion. Otherwise, if you move too quickly through it, you're not going to sound very. Um, you're not going to sound authentic, like you're really feeling what you're feeling, or at least what you want to try and portray. Okay, so here's the next little bit that I want to go over because it's an interesting one. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. What's happening there?
It's the
He is. It's oh he the it's the actual person like starting to realize slash process slash almost like almost trying to deny it at this all at the same time what he is seeing this dead person in front of him.
Okay,
Like
so this is
all
sort of
these random
processing.
new emotions are coming in all at once, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. Almost.
Okay,
So are we talking about what's happening or like the emotional state, or are we kind of talking about both?
both. Like this is overall like we're because it's this is a really strange method of writing, right? Like you don't normally read stuff like this, but I think it really fits and is appropriate with specifically what the author is trying to go for. So, what are they saying? Why are they putting it this way? Why should we give this any kind of special attention? Why? What do
It's
we need to do with it?
it's putting you the reader, it's putting the reader in the position of the person who came across the body so you can experience it, firsthand. And I feel like some of the emotion that's there is the like disbelief, like that shock is there. It's kind of like, that ringing in your ears, like you're not quite sure if you're really soaking in what's happening here, but there's some kind of adrenaline kicking in as more and more gets uncovered. So it's building up that, like, oh, that realization, that dawning of what's happening and, what you're actually seeing. So it's trying to put the reader in that position of like, oh, snaps. We just found a dead body.
So that's the reaction you want your reader to have as soon as you get that point. Just pauses it. Oh snap!
That's right. That's right. That's right.
The thing
Okay.
I really like about it is the character is getting confirmation in that moment it's a dead body, but the listener, the reader, still doesn't know for sure, and they just get it from the inference of him gasping. This
Mhm.
is the investigation because something looked like a body, and we get it, and that imagination of what he's seen, or this character has seen, is more powerful than just saying, oh yeah, it's a body.
Can you imagine that scene if this he leaned over looking, knelt down, reaching, fell back gasping, was just chained to it was a dead body.
It was a body.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we kind of hinted at it before. It's like, come on, get with it. It's a body, okay?
Yeah, right? It's like surprise surprise. It was a body the whole time.
Now, I don't know if this makes sense, but for some reason in my head, like, okay, obviously the first few lines is like, oh, they stopped, jogged in place, turned, ran back, walked a few final yards, slowing down, like, approached the silver mound on the snow. Honestly, for a second there, like, he leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching. Um, It almost kind of seemed like that could have been like that looked like a body, the body in question, like maybe it's describing what happened to the person that is now a body laying in the snow that potentially is there, right? Frigidaire dug into his pocket for cell phone, cries for help. Like, anyway, in my head, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I don't know if that necessarily makes sense, but I needed to
Okay.
get it out of my
Okay.
brain
Okay.
before it exploded.
See, the way that I'm seeing this is that those lines right there specifically, yes, basically your camera view is going first person into um, the into the character in the scene's view of what's going on, but it's a payoff of you being in their mind from earlier. So it's a direct one-to-one payoff. The first set of lines that look like a body to couldn't be to the second couldn't be is this building of tension, and you are now carrying that tension through up until up until fell back gasping. So those three sentences there are the payoff for the tension that you've been building this whole time. um, which means that there needs to be a continuing of your emotional state through from the end of couldn't be all the way up until fell back gasping. So the other thing is don't be afraid to utilize your physical space around you. Like, do these actions. Leaned over, looking, lean yourself forward. Knelt down, reaching. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, whatever, but reach out. Like, be in the scene. Show us that you care about what's happening in front of you. Because when you fail to do so, you lose your audience. Like, they need to be really engaged with like, this is why it's so important to have a strong sense of who you are in the scene and of what's going on around you, because that's the only connection that your listener has to what's happening, and it's going to make a huge difference between a mediocre performance and a great performance. So now that I've done a lot of rambling, does anybody have any other questions, comments, concerns, anything like that about the script before we dive back in?
So when do we start building the tension? And then I'm assuming like fell back gasping, that's when the tension's gone and it's the realization.
Yeah.
Like the actual realization.
So the tension technically begins building at the second couldn't be. So I would say that um, that looked like a body couldn't be, could be like confusion and then doubt, and then go back as this slow dawning realization, and then couldn't be is denial, and that's where your tension starts coming up when you're denying what you might have seen, right? So something like that looked like a body, couldn't be, and then the character realizes that I actually don't know. They have to know. Go back. Couldn't be. Now it's like I don't want it to be, right? And that's where the tension starts building. Does that make sense? Does that help out a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost like a little denial in there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think
Well,
denial is a really, really compelling emotion to have for that second one, because this character is innocent. They've never seen a dead body before. Their life has been completely normal all the way up until this point, where somebody who they may have known, again, we don't know this quite yet, but they may have known this person, is a frozen, lifeless corpse on the side of the road that they've probably jogged hundreds of times before. So yeah, I think denial is a very strong emotion to have there. And clearly, with his reaction, the depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. This is not routine, right? This is a massive shock. This is a huge, huge moment in his life. And that needs to be carried through by you. You are responsible as the narrator of this scene, as the overall steward of this world that you're bringing a listener into, to show that this is just absolutely mind altering. Like, world shattering. Like it says, this is a serious loss of innocence moment for him and a traumatizing experience altogether. So yeah.
I I kind of have a question with like maybe the pacing in
Hmm.
the latter part of the audiobook text. Would it be appropriate, like, that he leaned over, looking Neil down, kind of like picking up the pace at that point, like kind like the like almost as if like your breath was like, picking up because again you're getting closer and closer to the discovery, the payoff of, the reference beforehand.
Hmm.
Would that be appropriate in an audiobook setting? I've listened to audiobooks, don't get me wrong, but like not a lot recently, and so I don't know if that pacing needs to stay like pretty even keeled
Oh,
or.
more importantly than anything else, so the pacing shouldn't supersede the scene. So if the scene requires you to be a little bit quicker, like
Okay.
let's say it's a fight scene and it's describing it really frantic, and you pick up your pace just a little bit there, don't don't tumble over your words, obviously, and don't
Mm-hmm.
tumble over what's going on. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, pick up the pace, paint the scene with all of the tools that you have at your availability.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, and thinking back, there's obviously been variation, but just just gonna go ahead and ask the question anyway.
No, yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Again, your pace is as much a tool as any modulation that you can do with your voice. High, low, whatever it may be. Um, Pacing, tone, pitch, attitude, all of them should be used to paint the scene.
Related question
Yes.
in regards to that.
Hmm.
General Minder, is it ill advised to do small ad libs for audiobooks?
Yes, it is ill advised to do small ad libs for audiobooks because the text is king. You are
Okay.
presenting somebody else's work. Hey, thanks for being here, Joe. Take it easy. It's good seeing you again. But yeah, the text is the most important thing in an audiobook. Period. You can always check with the client, though. You can always say, "Hey, is it cool if I ad lib a little bit?" Some may say yes, sure, if that'll help you bring it to life. Some may say, "No, this is the text as I want it to be." But I guess a more accurate answer to that question would be: don't assume you can. Not with audiobooks, at least. Anything else?
I have a question that I know I need to get right in my head to do this properly.
Okay.
In the actual text itself, the second and then third sentences combined just don't seem to fit well for me. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That seems strange. If there's more light than darkness, I don't feel like you'd be saying what light there was. I don't know. It just doesn't work in my head. It feels discordant.
Okay. Okay.
Want to get people's thoughts to help me settle on something here so I can actually read it
Can't
properly.
not
Well,
disagree with that.
I mean, it's saying like, it's still more light than dark. Like it's, you'd consider it day, like what is that, dawn, I guess. And then but, what little light there was, played tricks on the eye. Like there's light there, not in abundance, but the light that is there, and of course, makes things more difficult to perceive to it's not obvious. It's still kind of muddled. Like your eyeballs don't know how to adjust because you're like, is it light? Is it dark? But there is a little bit of light, so you're not quite sure what's happening.
Just barely more light than dark, so you're in that
Yeah.
strange
Yeah.
in
Have you
between.
Yeah.
have you ever been like outdoors when the sun is rising, like when it's not quite day, but it's still not quite night, like it's transitioning over? Because I remember when I was
Yep.
younger, we'd go
Yeah, a
and,
little
and
bit.
camping, and there's this weird like there's this weird time particularly out where it's more wild, where yes, it's light, but you can't really make things out. It's not like bright enough to see, if that makes sense. It's just bright enough to where you could make out like a trail, like this guy was when running, but it's not light enough to make out details yet because he's jogging, he's moving. So with less light, it's going to seem like everything around him is a blur, which is why passing by that particular mound is like, did I really see that?
It's
Like, I don't
gone. You
know.
got to take a double take.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
anyone, well, a lot of folks, like, whenever you're having to adjust your TV, like, especially in games, sometimes if it's a really, like, dark video game, like the setting is dark, you have to make those adjustments where it's like, adjust your sliders until you can barely see this. Like, you can kind of tell that there's an image there, but, not super bright. Just it helps with the visualization of the game, and especially in scary games, because they don't want you to really be able to see those, scary things coming up, but you can barely see it. But
Yeah, and Brennan also, yeah. Light reflecting off of snow and ice can be relatively confusing. Oh, hey, there we go. Yeah, from Twitch chat, something like that. Absolutely. So, hope that helps. Anyone else? Cool. Let's get into the directed reads. We have 3 rules for the directed reads. All right, these are for our new attendees. Okay, these rules. Because this is going to be your first time, you will get 1 free pass for each of them, but that does not. I'm not encouraging you to break these rules. These rules were named after previous attendees to the workouts. They are the Dan rule, the Nephilim rule, and the Alex rule. So the Dan rule states that when you are up to read, you do not critique yourself whatsoever. Leave the critique to those who are directing you. We want you focused solely on your choices and on your performance. If you start focusing too much on how much a particular section sucked or how bad it was or whatever it may be, if something sticks out to you too much, you're going to be way too focused in on that. We don't want that. We want you focused on making solid choices. So leave the directing to the directors. The Nephilim rule states that you do not apologize for your performances before, during, or after, period. If you mess up, whatever. There's an entire career path of editing in audio production, in media production in general. So mess ups happen. You don't need to apologize. You didn't offend anyone. You just made a slip up. Go back, start again. You're good to go. And the Alex rule has more to do with feedback than anything else. Um, when you give feedback, be as specific as possible and never, ever, 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 ever use the word energy for feedback. Period. That word is not allowed here. It is too broad, unspecific, and unhelpful. Yes, there are reactions for whenever that happens. If that does come up, you will be reminded, and I will ask for clarification on specifically what you mean. Energy is too general of a term, it's too broad. We want something specific that you can actually work off of. No, Brennan already tried to make virility a thing. That's not happening. We're not using alternatives. Um, just be specific on your feedback. Anyway, now that we've said that, let's go ahead. I'm going to repost the reading order again if I can find it. There we go. But we are going to go ahead and start with Caitlin. So, Caitlin, whenever you're ready, give us a reading.
it was so cold that no one else was running, not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping, the depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Okay. Opening it up. What did you all think of that read?
All right. Common question. Who are you and why who are you saying this to?
I'm the narrator and I'm saying it to the listener. Um, so again, kind of like Amanda was saying, I'm more so going the route of I'm resonating with the person. Like I'm being the omniscient version of the person who came across the body. And their soul, if if their soul left their body, that's who I'm trying to vibe with. That's the direction that I'm taking it with. And who am I saying it to? Like if I could give an answer for that, maybe to themselves or to a close friend, or like recounting it. And because I feel like if the person who I'm being is recounting it, they're recounting it to themselves, and that's like a very intimate place where they can be completely honest about how they're feeling about it, and like reliving it just brings up all of those emotions again. And so that's why I was trying to, put the emotion that was there, as if it was currently happening, but just replaying it in my mind.
All
Or too long didn't read.
right. I very much like how you switched up the can't be's. Um, yeah, does anybody else have anything?
It sounded like you read it slightly slower, which, as Michael was saying, to me, it just brings out more emotion. So just keep doing that, Caitlin. Awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Does it count against the rules if I like try to like explain to you guys like what I was thinking during a portion of it, like what I was trying to go for? Is that against a rule?
Anthony is shaking his
I
head,
was
so I'm
actually
gonna say
curious
yes.
myself on that.
Okay. Like I'm not trying to justify it. I just wanted to maybe clue
I
you
think
in if you didn't
typically one
get it.
can explain their thought
Okay.
process, but not critique it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
you can you can you can express what was going through your mind at the time.
that's not where, yeah, I'm trying to stay in the lane, but that's not where I was going. So originally, like whenever I first read it, I wanted it to have like a dark, cold feel from the beginning, but then as we talked more, I thought maybe it'd be more appropriate or more jarring to like those first few sentences, the descriptions, just be normal. Like it was so cold that no one else was running, not at 6 a.m. And maybe a little bit more muted than that, but
I
that
do
be
actually like
normal.
that.
And then like in the middle of the self-talk, that's whenever the switch happens, of course, to like, uh-oh, something's amiss, and then really laying in the kind of replaying the events as that person, those emotions coming into play. So that's where I was going with that. No critiques here.
You're on thin ice.
Oh, topical.
Bada-bums. So, forgive me, I had to step away for just a moment. You were going into that your thought process. Why? What were you asked?
Andrew had asked me like, who am I and who am I speaking to? And I said I'm the narrator speaking to the listener, but no. The approach that I was taking was kind of like similar to like what Amanda had said. I'm more so going the route of being the omniscient version of the person who experienced this. So basically, I'm replaying the event in my head, of
Okay.
the person
Okay.
who saw it. Like
Okay.
it's a very intimate place to be.
Okay.
They can be very authentic when retelling it because they experienced it firsthand. They felt all those
Right.
emotions. It's not just telling it to someone else, like feeling those
So,
things.
so that being said, let's see. Why did you not physically act out the different points?
I think Because more so, I guess more so being just subtle, like, and I'm not saying I wanted a subtle performance, but
Hmm.
it was the leaning in, getting a little bit more quiet, in that regard. But uh, yeah, I was, I think, more just focused on the text in general and not the
Okay.
machinations of it.
So, I think generally the read that you gave us was pretty solid. Like I liked what you did. Um, but I want to know what being just a little bit more physical with the actions will do to your read. Not necessarily like you have to fall back gasping. Like you don't need to get that animated with it, but just a little bit of something. He leaned over, looking, knelt down, reaching. Just put your arm forward a little bit. Just adding a little subtleties to that scene to really bring us into specifically what you're seeing.
As long as my desk chair doesn't squeak.
Even if it does, it doesn't matter. What's more important is you get the performance.
Okay, hold on. Let me make sure the area is cleared so that I can do that. Okay, hold on.
Okay. Anybody else? Does anybody have anything before we move on? Okay. Whenever you're ready, Caitlin.
Not to get too graphic, but I felt like I needed to burp and I didn't want to burp in the middle of a read. So, okay, all right. It was so cold that no one else was running, not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for a cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind thick coon of ice.
Okay. Opening it up. What'd y'all think of that one?
I got the chills at the end there.
Oh,
Oh,
shucks.
appropriate.
Yeah, it's amazing what like those little movements can do to like really give more emotion, which in turns giving more investment in the scene.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is that's much better.
Thanks. I got it.
If
Damn it,
if I'm gonna
Mercury and
give you
Pisces.
if I'm gonna give you some really really minor nitpicky feedback,
Do it.
um, I would like for you to really differentiate the two couldn't be's. The first one should really be confusion. Couldn't be.
Yeah.
And the
I
second one should be a lot more than couldn't be. Like really, like because what you did was couldn't be. You had some of that denial and confusion at the beginning, but the second couldn't be was just the first one, but flatter.
I think I think on the first couldn't be. I I think I toned it down because I was originally in my head was like couldn't be, like a little too blasé, and
Why?
so
Why?
I
Why
did
is
tone
that?
it down. Why is what? Why did I tone it
Why?
down?
Well, yeah. Why would that be too blasé? And secondly, that's a violation of the Dan rule. Um,
See, okay, I knew I was gonna cross some line. Okay, ah, darn.
It happens in your head. You stopped yourself from giving us a read that could have really differentiated the two of those quite well. You didn't allow yourself to just play with what happens. Again, this is the encouragement. I want you to try it. I want you to see what that's like. If that's your first instinct, couldn't be. Why not? Why wouldn't that be their reaction? Again, The worst thing that could ever possibly happen to you is that you're asked to just do it again.
Okay.
The other thing is in the second paragraph, when you get to walked, emphasize walked.
He walked the final few, something similar to that.
Well, yeah, it's because he was jogging this whole time. He's jogging in place, turning back, and that's helping to build the scene. He's no longer jogging towards what he saw before. He's actually starting to take this seriously. He walked the final few yards.
Okay. All right. Anyone else before I proceed? No? Okay. All right. It was so cold that no one else was running, not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with a sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for a cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Okay, opening that up. What did you all think?
I got the chills a lot sooner that time, actually.
Oh.
So, how did you feel while you were reading it? Not how did you feel about the read. How
Yeah.
did you feel while you were reading?
Well, I'll take it from top to bottom. So in the
Okay.
beginning, it was just kind of just normal descripting, felt pretty neutral, just telling it like it is, like, oh, it's early. But once I got to the self-talk, I started feeling that. I was picturing myself feeling those things I was trying to portray, like that looked like a dead body. Like, what? Like, well, and then yeah, okay, sure. No, couldn't be. And then it was like, I mean, you had that thought, so like maybe you should go back. Something stuck out, like something's weird. And then it was like, oh, but oh my god, like, do I really want to go back there and see what that was? If it is a body, like, like that's horrible, like pre-imagining, like that's what I find. And then during that the some distance later, again, it's starting to kind of bring it down to a chillier stance, because again, I already had that, like, oh, couldn't be. So I'm already in that mindset, like, ooh, I'm building this up, I'm gonna find something bad. Hopefully not, but it could be bad. And then, as I'm describing, like, he leaned over looking, that, like, honestly, like, I could kind of feel my heart beating a little bit faster. Like, I pictured myself doing this, because again, I'm this person recounting what is going on, so I'm refeeling all of these things in a very intimate way. So yeah, my adrenaline started going up. I felt the coldness, I was feeling what was happening, and then the fell back gasping. Again, my I felt like I was taking deeper breaths whenever, the lungs filled. I was feeling kind of frightened, panicked. Adrenaline was up. um and then the torn candy wrapper, that was, kind of the like post ringing in the ear, like flashbang, kind of thing, like when things are starting to kind of get clear again. But just really taking in these vivid little details, because I'm not looking at anything else but the scene that's right there in front of me because it is just shocking, stark, and nothing I have ever experienced before. So just
No,
nerves are up.
that was fantastic. Like because you had a clearer thought and clearer idea of what you wanted to do, that came through so much, just so much better in your performance. So thank you.
Thank you, thank you,
Yeah,
thank
I think we're
you.
good to move along. Sonic, you are up.
All right. I have a method that I have in my notes, so I'm going to try to see if it pays off. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eyes. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeling down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with frigid, sharp the depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into his pocket for a cell phone, the crying for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapping against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifting snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick coon of ice.
All right, opening it up. What did y'all think?
You could differentiate more between the two couldn't be's. They were. It felt a bit too similar.
Did they really? Oh.
Yeah.
Sonic, is this script? Do you feel comfortable with it?
Oh yeah, I'm comfortable. I mean, I probably have a little bit of the chills from Caitlin's read still running through me a little bit. I won't deny that,
Okay.
but I'm fine
Oh,
otherwise.
stop it.
Okay. Because there were portions of it that you missed. Um, he leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. You replaced some of those words or changed their tenses. Um, a torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. You said flapping, so it seemed like you were kind of thrown off at the latter half of the script.
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess I just interpret like, no, flapping sounds better, even though I know that's not how I should read that.
Okay. Well, I
I
would
guess it
say
just sound more natural, maybe.
just uh, be really, really careful about about specifically what the script says. Again, in audiobook work, the text is king, and if you send in
Yeah.
something that isn't accurate to what was written, then some people get really, really touchy about that. But just as uh, a general rule for audiobooks, like you really need to stick specifically to what it says
Okay.
and bring that to life. Let's see. Brennan says that it sounded a little disconnected to him. Would you care to unmute and explain a little bit what you mean?
It didn't sound like he was there. Describing the actual scene at hand. Sounded like he was literally just reading it off a script.
Okay. It's coming off a bit reedy there. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
I was gonna do the classic thing of what were you seeing, what were you feeling?
Okay.
Because I think that might be where the disconnect is coming from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the method I tried to do didn't really work out because what I did was have notes on the
It's a Dan
side
rule
of like,
violation. And that was not what you were asked either. What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
Uh, well, I was thinking like, okay, what is this supposed to be? This certain line supposed to be? It's like, okay, we start as a normal day, and then the next bit, like that looked like a body. Like he's supposed to be confused. Couldn't be. And then he's like, just to be safe, like go back, just to be safe. And then couldn't be. He starts to get anxious, and then he starts to build and build and build until he gets to the realization where he falls back and gasps, like this is a actual dead body that he's just found. Like his worst fear has just been realized.
So, who are you when you're imagining all of this as you're reading? 'Cause you're saying he, so you're not putting yourself in this person's shoes.
I am the, like I said earlier, I am the friend of the person, but when I guess when I'm reading like the italicized lines, I imagine that I am like him. But I guess there's a point where it's like, oh, it doesn't really show that maybe, so maybe I should drop that. And I did it again, dang it.
I
Like,
see, the
Really?
thing is it's you no, I mean, look, you have a clear idea of what you want to do, but it seems like you kind of changed this up last minute before you started reading.
yeah.
You said you had a method. Okay, I think that's
I'm
really
not gonna
what it
do that
comes from.
method.
Well, the thing is, I mean, that's fine, but I mean, if you were going to try something different, springing it on yourself last minute, probably not the best idea to do.
Oh, okay.
Um, uh, Again, though, it seems like your mind and your thought process is heading in the right direction. It just didn't connect with your delivery because, yeah, you threw yourself off. So I would say for this next read, if you want to stick with that method, that's fine. Just be really engaged with what you're seeing in front of you. Bring us with
Yeah.
you. So, whenever you're ready, let's hear it again.
It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 3 a or 3 a.m. Yeah. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeling down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with the sharp, frigid air as he dug into his pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Okay, opening it up. How was that one?
Two instances where you didn't read the words again, kneeling, and the other one was I think it was dug into a pocket, somewhere around there. The other note is you didn't finish at that time of day as a complete sentence, you dragged on day.
Ah, interesting. Thought
Okay. So minor notes here. The thing is, though, is I could tell, at least performance-wise, towards the end, you felt a lot more connected with what you were trying to say. So what emotion do you want people to feel when you start up the second paragraph? Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned back, and ran. What should your
Anxiety.
listener anxiety? Okay. Okay. So the thing is it didn't seem like you had a goal for what it is your listener was supposed to feel for that sentence for that sentence. It felt more like you were just reading a series of events rather than, okay, this is anxiety inducing. If the subject of the audiobook is feeling anxiety, then You should cater to that. So when speaking to somebody who has anxiety, what are some things that you think of? Like imagine somebody who's just feeling really anxious about some big thing they're going to do, whether it be a test or a procedure or something. Imagine speaking to that kind of person. What are some things that come to mind when you talk to them? Like how do you
Like,
approach them?
I'd imagine it'd be like they're tensing up, like their shoulders like kind of screw like crunch in a little bit, I guess.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like rubbing the arm, maybe. They're like, I don't know. It's like,
Okay. Well, how would you talk to them?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. And that's a tough question. I understand. But if you were going to speak with somebody who's feeling anxiety and you wanted to be sympathetic to them, that's kind of the idea that we're going for here. I would say try lowering it down a little bit and getting a little closer to the microphone. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned,
Mm.
and ran back. Like be really, really intentional and specific with like each different event. See what I mean?
Oh, so maybe like, oh, okay. I have an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Then then I'd like to hear what your idea is. So put it into your next read, but I'm going to have you start from the top again.
Okay. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeling down, or kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
All right, opening it up. What did y'all think of that one?
As you've done it more and more, you're sinking into it more and more. Like every time it's gotten substantially better.
Is it
I
easier
have
to see what you're referencing as you read it more, Sonic?
Yeah, with that repetition, I've noticed that with other stuff too that I
Yeah.
do. It's like
Okay.
the more I do it, the more I get into it and the more I can
Okay.
picture it.
Okay. Then maybe that's definitely something that you need to incorporate in your own auditioning and your own practice. Just take some time to
Mhm.
read through it multiple times beforehand. I mean, that's a direct uh, differentiation from what I usually tell people to do because sometimes we have this bad habit of sort of ingraining bad muscle memory into our reads. But I think the repetition has really, really helped you get a grasp of what you're trying to do with the read. Because yeah, I thought that was your strongest read so far, and your reads just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
I did pull back a bit once I got to a torn candy wrapper. Did that
Mhm.
sound a little better or
I again, I really enjoyed what you gave for that read, just in general. Um,
okay.
I think it worked for you personally.
All right then. That's good to know. Do you want me to do one more read or do you think we're good for that?
Personally, I think we're good because I think if we keep going, we're going to start moving into the over practicing. We're going to move into the realm of over practicing, and I don't want to uh, unintentionally undo any progress that was made so far.
Okay.
So I think that was a really good read. But I think that we noted something really important for you. Yeah, take your time to read through a script several times beforehand, and just try applying what it is that you're doing again and again and again in slightly different ways. Because I think that's really going to help you out in the future.
Real quick before we move on, and I
Mhm.
do actually do have to hop up here in a little bit, but like, if we were to put a number to it, like, how many times should I like actually record? Like, not the reading of it, but like, how many times should I submit or not submit, but like record myself and then listen
Record your
back to?
takes.
Yeah.
You see, I'm of the opinion that even when you're zeroing in on your read, you should record every take you do.
Mhm.
Just record them all. Um,
But don't do too many times.
yeah, you'll start hearing. So if you do an audition and then you listen back to it, this is why I don't have you direct yourselves, is because when you're actually doing an audition and you're listening back to what you've done, I want you to treat that as a separate from you performance, right? I don't want you to think, okay, I sucked doing this. I want you to think, okay, this performance needs to change here, right? So what you'll begin to notice if you do approach it that way is that as you listen back to your performances, you'll start noticing when your progress plateaus, when your changes stop happening.
Okay.
And somewhere within that point is where you have the best take for yourself, I would say.
All right.
But where that is specifically in terms of a number, I don't know. That's up to you.
Okay. Maybe I'll try that next time. I'll just kind of mute up and then read a couple
Yeah,
times after.
absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see what it does.
All right.
Awesome.
All right.
Well,
I
let's go
gotta
ahead
get
and
going down. Thank you.
all right, take
Thank
it
you for
easy.
having. Bye bye.
And next up, Tiger.
Hello. Right. There may be some outside noises from since I'm in an apartment building and they're gathering trashes, but I'm gonna take
Just
headphones
give
off
us the
and
read.
give it. Yep. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
All right, opening it up.
And
What did
headphones
y'all
on.
think of that read?
That was a good, solid read, in my opinion. I I think which this has been a theme, but I feel like on the couldn't be's, you could probably put a little bit more differentiation there, right? It was there, but it was subtle. So I don't, that the subtleness of it made it kind of authentic, right? But I feel like for the purpose of really building up, the tension and the emotionality that's coming up, especially, I feel like maybe a little bit more drastic delivery would help there. Again, the subtleness of it, I got, and I would probably have that thought in my head similarly. But turn it up just a little bit more to really start building that tension and everything. I will say as well, I really loved that first sentence of the second paragraph. I can't even describe it to you really, but the way that just the whole way that you delivered that first line was a really good transition, and I really enjoyed it, and it it got me into the zone for what was coming up. Obviously, I've heard the script, but it really got me in the zone there. um, and even the little pause between like he walked the final few yards, that was really good because it started like it was helping the slowing down. You were already going into that, so you were literally doing the same thing as what the text was saying itself. So that was really, really awesome. Uh, again, the tone that you were setting there, the leaned over, that was really good because I felt the, I felt the action. So I feel like you did a good job with those. You might even make that even a little bit more slower, like the he leaned over, looking a little bit more of a pause, kneel down, like let that heart rate start building, and that uncomfortable silence really start like playing into it a little bit more. Um, and then those last three lines, the breathiness and like there's a little bit of shakiness in there that really resonated with, again, you're in that moment. And you know, I don't know if you'd already said this or not. Please excuse me if I did not hear of like what position you were taking, as the narrator. Like, were you envisioning yourself as a particular, like in a different scenario than just being that person? Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
so I did flip between two perspectives. So I was thinking of an exceptionally close friend who was scarred by this and who I have heard wake screaming from nightmares ever since then. So it is near and dear to my heart as well, and I'm seeing the scene as the friend, but knowing what he's coming to.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, the final three lines are his nightmares, what he sees.
Mm.
So the cries for help already rising in his throat, and then he runs. And then the last three lines are just the indifference of a cold world in the face of what he saw.
Yeah, it was that. I see what you're saying. And yeah, that's interesting too. Yeah, being the friend and having that empathy, or not, I don't know if empathy, but that sympathy, like that's another layer of like heavy emotion, right? Like this person that you care about went through this and you're feeling it by association kind of, and but more as well, like more different emotions. That, yeah, that wonderful delivery. Just those few teeny little things.
I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Showing off over here because your first job was an audiobook.
Literally my first job. I didn't know
Well,
anything.
well, well. Looky there.
Someone's a cheater.
don't find the audiobook. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's not fair. You
That means
no,
we
I
have
want
to
to
now.
see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want to
exactly.
hear it.
Exactly. Exactly. We're going to have to find it and then we're going to have to put it on our shout outs channel so that everybody knows.
Oh God. Oh God.
It's
We're
like that
helping
one
your
Thinking of
scene.
career
other
out.
things I've done.
I'll blow the
Just
lid
not
wide
that
open on
one.
everything else you've done.
Right.
But okay, so in terms of the read, um, generally, I really don't have all that much to say about it because I think you had a strong idea of not only your character, but of what emotions the listener was supposed to be feeling. And I think you carried
Mm.
us through that really, really well. Yeah, if you want to uh, if you want to differentiate the couldn't be's a little bit more, I think that would be, that could be something that you could do. But I think for the most part, you give us a really solid read. I feel that this one's going to be more for fun, right? And just to see if you can give us a subtle little change. So the first one, let's assign something specific. The first couldn't be really dismissive. So couldn't be, just really dismissive. And the second
No
one
way.
should be just dreaded disbelief.
Oh.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right. was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. It looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
All right, opening
And
it
that
up.
comes up.
What did you all think?
The only thing that I will comment on this time around is this time and the time before, however you said snow, like there's a crazy amount of something for me in snow. Like I feel like it was like of course that's the turning point, but it's like you somehow made snow the turning point, like to where it really went like chilling. And I guess that's appropriate, but I don't know, kudos. Like that was really cool to me.
Well, I guess it helps when you live next to it, right?
Yeah, there's currently snow outside. Not much, but there is some. Well, thank you. Yeah,
When you were
in my head that
describing,
was. Oh, please.
when you were describing, the part was like, you walked a final few yards, slowing down as each step. You leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. I feel like you're kind of overdoing it there. It's giving like anime read. I was half expecting like the theme song to play like just after that scene.
Hmm.
Would you like dial it back a
Is
bit?
anybody else getting that?
I must be going crazy. I have no idea.
Oh, no, I
No,
mean
no.
it's if that's what you
You
heard,
can't be
that's what you
wrong with
heard.
your opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's an opinion, that's fine. I'm just wondering if anybody else might have caught the same thing. I don't think I heard that, but um, yeah, I mean, Tiger, if you could go ahead and give us one more read, pulling that back a little bit. Let's see what that does.
Sure. I can do that. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice. Whoop.
So
Okay.
did anyone else have like technical difficulties where he dropped out for a little bit, or was that just me?
On some of the italicized parts, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
first two
Okay.
italicized lines,
Oh no.
unfortunately.
You probably gave us the greatest performance in the world of those two lines specifically. It just they're now lost to time.
Oh yeah, no, they were definitely the greatest. I'm actually gonna get an award later. I've already been notified,
Yeah,
so that's
that's
your
it.
loss. Sorry.
That's it. That's what I like to hear.
Ah, cursed technical issues.
Yeah, there was some
Um,
popping. Like, there was a point where I thought my head was going to explode with the sound that was coming through. I love technical issues. Love them. And by love, I mean
oh,
hate.
it
It's
it
literally the
got
exact opposite.
it got that bad.
I just, I don't know if anybody else heard the same things that I did. I just know on my end that's what I heard. But the
There was
thing
an
is,
audible pop.
yeah. Okay, so you did hear that. I'm not
Really?
going crazy. I'm not going crazy. Thank goodness. Yeah. I don't know if that was your equipment. I don't know if you record on your end, but uh,
I actually do, and I'm definitely gonna listen back.
okay, yeah, yeah. Let us know. Take a note. How long have we been doing this for? Um, oh yeah, this is almost 2 hours. Oh my gosh! If you're
This is a
recording the whole
2 hour
thing, it's almost two
long
hours.
program, guys.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I said. 2 hours. We're now hitting the halfway point. Jeebus. Anyway, um, no, no. Again, I think over the last several reads, because of the clarity of your character, specifically what you had in mind, I think you gave us some absolutely fantastic reads, and I'm really happy with moving on.
Yeah, that was
Aw,
great.
thank you.
I think we good.
Very nice.
All right, Roddy. Time to follow up that performance.
Okay, yeah, I'm not muted. All right. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eyes. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mounds of the snow. Slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mounds on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths the depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cry for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of snow. Behind a Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
All right, opening it up. Let's get some feedback for Roddy. What did you all think?
Miss Words Go
Aside from
Bird.
that little flub up on that last sentence at the end, I feel like that's really solid.
Yeah, I'll agree. I feel like uh, I'm like, yeah, I agree. Let me say some other things. But no, I don't mean that in a negative manner by any means. Very solid read, but I feel like And not everybody does this, and not everybody needs to. Uh, but I feel like some of the pacing in the second paragraph, I'm highlighting it like you can see what I'm doing, but some of the some of the pacing in the second paragraph, I feel like you could slow that down, maybe some more pauses where you feel appropriate. Um, just again to really keep building up that tension. So that's my just play around with the pacing and pauses in that second paragraph.
Just gonna
Um,
yeah, on my end, I'm highlighting it too. Should I pause right here?
No, 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 no. A little bit farther over.
that's
Just a
up
little
to
bit farther over.
you to discern where you want to pause and where you want to, But oh yeah, yeah. Um, since everyone's pretty much been asked, who who are you? Like, what are you? Who are you? Who are you as the narrator? Like, do you have a specific vision or kind of
Yeah,
character that you're trying to play up?
I do. I do.
But that's mine
I
to
am.
know.
I do,
No,
but you're
I was
going.
gonna explain. I was
But
gonna
I will
explain.
not reveal my secrets.
Uh,
I am currently in the mountains on a cabin trip gone bad at 3 a.m. Well, not we got stuck at 3 a.m., but our car broke down. Our car broke down on the way to the cabin, and we went out to look for help, splitting up, and I got frozen.
okay. You weave such rich tapestries, Roddy. I really do enjoy it. I do.
I would just stop right there because Brandon already called.
You've been called out, Roddy. You have been
But
called out.
I did have. I was in character. I was in character.
Okay, okay. See, one of the things is I think so. You have a long prep time before you dive in, and while again I want people to dive in when they feel ready. Um, Roddy, for this next one, I'd like for you to have a shorter prep time. Just kind of
Okay.
allow yourself to just be in the scene. Like don't think about like putting yourself in the scene. Just try to try to shorten that distance between your reads or your preparation and your reads.
Okay.
I just want to see what that does to your ability to kind of ad lib and make choices and roll with it as you go along. So whenever
I
you're
do.
ready. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go
Hey,
ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I'd like to bring up one thing that I think is related, actually, um,
Okay.
which is the first sentence before we as the audience know where all of this is going to go. It already sounded a little bit dire, like the stakes were already kind of introduced. Um, I'm not
Should I
sure if you
wait?
were just looking ahead. So it kind of went from already kind of down to now we're good, right back into the more serious mood.
Okay. Got it. Wait a bit for the stakes.
Always let your stakes rest.
Noted.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. B. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eyes. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, and fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cry for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice. My Skittles.
Much better pacing on that one, Roddy. Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
But
There it is.
he, or you, so yeah, you said and fell back.
Yep.
You connected fell back with reaching. It's a minor thing, but it does change the concept. It does change the content of the script. So here's the thing. I think so one of the things that you're doing really strong though, Roddy, one of the things that I think is really is sticking out to me as something unique is that your play of the emotions is subtle but definite. You're not going as hard into the emotional range as Tiger is doing, or Tiger did in his reads, but you didn't need to. Your emotional expression is really really good. The thing that's tripping you up is just the words themselves. It seems because your emotional expression is fantastic. You're just tripping over yourself.
Right.
So just the last half, some distance later, just the last half, and be really intentional when it comes to the wording. Right?
Yeah.
That's the main thing I want to hear, but I'm going to open it up to anybody else.
Yeah, I have two quick notes that are one is just more technical, I think. And I could still be wrong on this, but the line near the beginning, it was still more light than dark at that time of day, kind of went up, and it felt like the sentence didn't fully end. And then also he walked the final few yards. I didn't get as there was much more emphasis on that these are the final few yards he's approaching, which could still work, but not as much emphasis as walked. So they didn't feel like there was a transition between the running and walking.
I can work with that.
Whenever you're ready.
And you said the second half.
That's correct. Just the latter half, just some distance.
Some distance later, he stopped. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cry for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Roddy, I'm going to disappoint you. And Brennan already pointed it out. The cries, plural, for help, not cry, singular. Now, I don't think we need to have you do it again because you smooth everything else out, and again, your emotional engagement is really really strong. That would be a minor retake, or heck, who knows? Even if the director really liked it enough, they might just be like, just change the word. Nobody's gonna notice. I don't know. I'm not gonna say that definitively, but um, I think we're still safe to move along because you fixed absolutely everything else. It's just super minor.
Gotcha.
But again, your emotional engagement, the subtle play on the emotions, I think is where your strength lies with this. Like truly, I think that really is where your strength lies. It's just the words tripping you up gets a little bit in the way of that.
Yeah.
I am
But
actually super impressed by how much you're portraying with doing not so little, but there is such restraint and still such depth behind it. It's really cool.
Thank you.
all right, moving it right along, Cassidy, you're up.
It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
All right, opening it up. What do you guys think?
That second couldn't be. Could have used a little bit more denial or disbelief, I'd say.
Yeah, differentiating the two couldn't be's, yeah. The one thing the one main thing that kind of caught my attention was how quick you were going through it, Cassidy. You're moving really fast through the script, and I think you'd be really well served to slow it down a bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think I've had it described to me before that since you are in character still, these words are the things that are coming to you to describe the scene, and they express the feelings. So the basis of it should be the feelings, and your words just express that. So you be in that scene, in what you're doing, and it can let it be able to take the time it needs to develop.
All right, so slow down, differentiate the couldn't be's, and add more emotion.
And I'm not even necessarily saying add more emotion,
But just like
allow
express
yourself
more.
to be there.
Okay.
Allow yourself to feel, because that will naturally slow it down. That's why I'm adding that on.
Okay.
100% agree. Whenever you're ready, from the top.
All right. It was so cold that no one else was running, not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
All right. What are you guys' thoughts on that one?
Say a little bit better pacing, but echoing what Michael said, just slow it down. Take your time, and um, yeah, I think it should be good.
I feel like you could really take advantage of you have an amazing voice, first of all. So I feel like you could really take advantage of like getting a little bit more, like slowing it down, like really intentionally slowing it down and giving it more of that wispy, I feel like if you slowed it down and like read some of those in like a quieter voice, I feel like it would bring out that extra chilling, element to the script and everything. So I think you got this. Just be very intentional about slowing it down.
I guess the theme for tonight's feedback is all cold, extra chilling. Slow it down. But yeah, no, actually, I'm gonna echo what was said here. I'd like to just let's just do the last three sentences, but really, really like slow them down. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. Right. So, not full. Don't go full voiced. Get a little bit closer to the microphone and a little bit more quiet, and like intentionally slow your pace down as much as you can. I'd like to hear what those last three sentences sound like from you. Just really slow, close to the mic, and really careful.
Got it. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Okay, taking those really, really slow and close on the microphone, I really liked those. What did you guys think of them?
Yeah, I think it made a major difference for me. Definitely, like it brought forth again the atmosphere. I feel that
Mm-hmm.
needs to be there. So kudos. That was good. Sometimes it's the smallest things you have to do to get something going.
Yeah, sometimes it's just being really subtle. That's truly it. Sometimes it is just really just subtlety. So yeah, Cassidy, I think the biggest thing is just work on slowing down your reads because you have a very regular, even pace, which for the most part, I mean, it's worked for a lot of the reads that you've given us. But I think with something like this, like you really need to intentionally find places to slow your pace down and really control how fast we're moving through the text. It's just because we have to see what you're saying. So
And, well, I hope this doesn't count as criticizing myself, but like, I have heard in the past when reading aloud, people tell me to slow it down a little. It's
okay.
just when I'm reading off uh something that's right in front of me, it's so easy to just like,
It really is. Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. It's easy to kind of just tune in and just do the thing, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Um, but the way that I would like for you to try to reframe that, if possible, is this is your time to shine. Everybody's listening to you and they want to hear a good performance from you. They don't want you to just get done with the script. They want to hear you bring this to life. So I would really encourage you in the future to intentionally take more time with your reads, intentionally slow them down, and see what that does. Because I think it's going to make your reads, it's going to help tune your reads to something really, really good. Um, Instead of just that one singular pace, you can now then offer multiple paces. So you can go your natural faster pace, or you can slow it down for other clients as well. But I think that would be something to practice a lot on your own as well.
I'll keep that in mind.
All right. Does anybody else have any further feedback for Cassidy? Okay. Moving right along. Andrew, you are up.
All right, let's do this. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was playing tricks on the eyes. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later he stopped, jogged in place, turned and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with the sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes started Dark eyes stared blankly from beneath a thick cocoon of ice.
Okay. Opening it up. What'd you guys think?
Minor mistakes with a couple of the words, but the major thing that I got was you sound like you killed this girl.
Well, wait, I think he is the one who suggested that he was the murderer, like retracing his steps and the mistakes he made. So maybe that was just coming
In
through,
that
you know?
case, yeah, it worked.
Well, that's not what I was going for,
Great
so.
choice.
Not what I was going for, so.
You had a pre-built bias that from your earlier opinion. That's what it was. It just kind of leached out. Oh boy. It's always the ones you least expect.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, there were some technical word issues. I think you said was twice. Right, there was played tricks on the
Hmm,
eyes, something like that. Somewhere you
gotcha.
said wise, yeah, and from behind a thick cocoon of ice, not the thick cocoon of ice.
Hmm, alright.
I think he said beneath rather than behind as well. And
Yeah,
just
he
again,
said beneath.
little, you know.
Oh, beneath. Okay.
Mhm.
So, who are you?
I am the runner.
You're the runner. Okay.
And I am a friend to this girl that I have just come across.
Okay. All right. So then the thing that you need to give to us is a really, really definite change of engagement. What I mean by that is at the beginning, it was so cold that no one else was running. All that needs to be just like, come on, whatever, right? It's a normal part of the
Mhm,
day. Because with this script, and especially since we've heard it multiple times and you've probably read it through multiple times, you're kind of anticipating reaching the dark parts, right?
mhm,
So you start there. No, start off more relaxed, more nonchalant, more like hey, it was so cold that no one else was running, not at 6 a.m. It's just you're setting the scene, and it was completely unassuming. It was a normal day like any other, just a little bit colder,
mhm.
and then you can start sinking into those darker emotions.
Alright.
Anybody else?
I feel like in that second paragraph, the some distance later, he stopped. Like not even just not even just slowing down the pace. I feel like I've been a broken record in that regard. I'm just a fangirl for slowing down. But like even just the words themselves, like, stretching some of those words out in parts of it to really make them stick a little bit more. You don't have to do it for everyone, but especially like the he leaned over looking, the He leaned over, looking. You know, like
All
something
right.
something like that to kind of again really keep that tension up. So maybe try that
All
for
right.
me.
I'm gonna piggyback off that. Where and Michael has said a couple times that it's an audiobook. People wrote this and spent a lot of time and effort on it. Every word they selected for a reason. And so there's practically nothing that's just there's words there. There is intention and meaning behind those. I think in some sections we're losing the intention and meaning. So, as Caitlin mentioned, the stop, jogged in place, turned and ran back. This is him almost leaving that. He can't help but go back.
All right.
Anybody else? Okay, from the top, whenever you're ready.
All right. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reached, fallen back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with the sharp, frigid air as he dug into his pockets for the cell phone. The cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared the drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Opening it up. What did y'all think of that one?
I thought the first lines, the first three lines, I think you nailed that. Like that was great in juxtaposition with what was to come. And yeah, I feel like you said that all really well. Like
Thank
even
you.
the way that you said what light there was played tricks on the eye. I feel like there was kind of like a little knowingness, like
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in there. Don't ask me how, but there was kind of a like you know, this is kind of a maybe this will come up later. Um, and the
Foreshadowing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you inserted foreshadowing into your tone, which is great. Uh, the only thing for me, I liked the slowdown on the all the actionable steps down there. The depths of his lungs filled with a sharp, frigid air. That line, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like there's not a huge difference between that and the following three. And I feel like that line, the depths of his lungs, that's where a lot of desperation needs to come in. You know, whether that's breathiness or a quickening of the pace or
Okay.
whatever it is. But there's desperation there. Like you're in it, you've seen it, you don't like it. You know,
All
so
right.
that needs to come through stronger.
All right.
I'll be the one to bring up the technical notes. I think there were more missed words on that read, sadly.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Also, don't
Yeah.
laugh. You laughed out
Oh
not
yeah,
at
at
6
the beginning.
a.m. Don't laugh.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was thinking I've never been that happy to go on a run at 6 a.m. That's for sure.
I do like running, so.
Okay, well, okay. Hey, that's good. That's cool. But
This is
just
below
don't laugh.
freezing runs here.
Yeah, it doesn't add to your read in any meaningful way unless
All right.
it's specifically something a character is doing.
Okay.
To me, it sounded like you started getting a bit reedy or you ran out of gas starting from the depths of his lungs. Everything else sounded fine to me.
All right.
Word issues. You said falling back, gasping.
Fallen back.
Fell back, gasping.
Hmm.
Let's see. There was another one. I just can't remember where.
I think it was.
Am I allowed to point it out? Because I know what word I messed up on.
Oh.
Okay, Andrew,
Is
seeing as
this
how
a
you were not
violation of
paying
the hand rule?
attention. So you've already broken it, seeing as how you're not paying attention to just your performance. So which words were it? Or which words were they?
I accidentally said reached instead of reaching. As you've already pointed out, I did not say fell back. And then I messed up on a gust of wind cleared drifted snow.
Okay. So here's the thing. Give yourself a break before getting into the last three sentences. Just give
All right.
yourself a little bit of a break, right? Let the emotions sit for just a second before moving into the last three sentences. The laugh thing was really minor. I liked what you did for the first half. I don't think you need to redo that. I think we just need to focus on the second half. So take it from some distance later to the end.
All right. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. Torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
All right, opening it up. How was that one?
I like the way that you delivered the very first line of that. I feel like there was some more somberness to it. Like the some distance later. It wasn't just like a some distance later he stopped. Not that you did that the first time, but it was more appropriately toned. I feel like this time around. Like the turn was happening. Uh, I could tell that you were putting a little bit more. You were putting more into the desperation line. The depths of his lungs
Mhm.
and everything. And honestly, like if I was listening to this audiobook, I really liked the length of the pause that you had there. Like I know it was there as more of like a tool, right? For this
Mhm.
exercise, but I felt that actually played really well in this read. So
All right, thank you.
kudos.
I like a retake of the depths of his lungs, the entire sentence, because you paused abruptly at pocket.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does feel like you're running out of air and need to resupply in the middle of it, which is a kind of intense sentence. Kind of that's what we're building to when that's the release of energy. Um, I'm going to be super nitpicky, and I
I'm sorry.
recognize it
That's
is.
that's the release of what?
Oh no!
Tension.
Tension.
How dare you, of all people?
I have no defense. That's Yep.
Thank you, Roddy. Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
Own up to that
Yo,
mistake. That
yep.
came out,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
feel ashamed.
Okay, so that's why don't you go ahead and take that again? Think a moment. Give them something specific to work with. At that point, that part of the script is the release of what?
The release of all of the tension that has been building. He, sorry, fell back, gasping, and then it's the release of all of this tension that has been building the whole time, that needs to be continuous. And
All
then
right.
the very last super picky thing, and I recognize it's super picky, um, is turned and ran back. My thought on this is that they're all separate actions. Stopped, jogging in place, turned, and then ran back.
All right. So you want to pause in between each of them.
Yeah,
Paint us the scene.
I think they denote different things. He's turning, and he still is not fully committed to going back yet.
All right.
There's hesitation with each comma.
So then just some distance later to already rising in his throat.
Oh, okay. Yes. All right. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat.
Okay. What did y'all think of that?
I love the pauses in the first line, because again, it almost elicits like a like what's the word I'm looking for, like a hesitation, right? But something is pulling you, something is pulling you to go back. Like you don't necessarily want to go back, but there's something compelling you to go back, and those pauses kind of help, I
Mhm.
think, denote that. So that was good feedback and good execution.
I think it's pretty safe to say, Andrew, you're off the hook. You did it. Moving along to
Thank you.
Sublime. Don't forget to unmute.
Of course, of course.
All right, man. Whenever you're ready, go for it.
All right. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound in the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping, the depths of his lungs filled with a sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Of ice. All right, opening it up. What did y'all think?
Agreed with
Uh
Brendan.
You had me
oh,
totally invested. You got a great voice for this.
yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Grazie mille.
but
Uh-oh.
he
I
stayed in one place.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Mhm.
What?
There was
So based, yeah, go ahead, Roddy.
there was no dynamic change in terms of you going through the lines. There wasn't really a tone shift. you stayed in the same area of comfort, you could diverge a bit from that, specifically on different parts to get different emotions.
What would you say specifically?
Hold up, let me go to the script. Like on specifically the couldn't bees,
Mm-hmm.
have make sure they're different from each other in terms of the first one, like we established earlier, was more of a dismissive one, and then the second couldn't be is a realization. And then onwards, a slight rise intensity and anxiousness.
In that second paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say like in that second paragraph, uh, in the he leaned over and kneeled down, fell back. Those particular lines, I
Mhm.
I think like the second part of each of those little phrases, like the looking, the reaching, and the gasping, all of
Mhm.
those I felt like there was some good emotion, like an appropriate emotion there, but there wasn't anything leading into it, like, he leaned over, like it didn't match. The two didn't match exactly. So just carry that all the way through, like from the beginning to the end. Uh and then yeah, the last three lines, I don't know if maybe how am I trying to say this? They had the same pattern. There wasn't they were said in like with the same pattern. Like I'm not gonna say it exactly like you, but a torn candy
Cadence?
wrapper flapped
Okay.
against a gust of wind, cleared, drifted. That sort of thing. Like the pauses were in the same place, that sort of thing. So try to vary that up. Maybe slow that down. Maybe that would help. And just put those pauses in different places to kind of vary up that the pattern of how you're reading it. But yeah, you have great voice. So I feel like with your next read, it's probably gonna
What the?
be even more
Yeah.
excellent.
So just like what Caitlin said, to add into what Caitlin and Roddy has said already, um, you have a great voice. Your read was clear. I think your enunciation was wonderful. Now, however, when it comes to um, uh, 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 giving a story this uphill narration as it gets to the climax of the discovery of the tragedy, it it didn't feel like an uphill slope to a downhill roll. It just felt like a plane. Basically, you walk through it in the same way you began your narration. The introduction was fine when you started, and then but when it gets to that look like a body, that's when a little bit I would suggest a little bit of uncertainty comes in, because it is now an inner monologue of the character. And then as soon as you get to the second paragraph, at some distance going down, this is where the tragic discovery plays in. You have a lot of time to play with words here. Your pausing was wonderful. Now, for me, if I was your director, I would request that you play around with the second one. You play around with pauses. You basically paint the picture painfully and slowly for your readers and for your listeners, so that at the end, when you say a torn candy wrapper, when it says revealing a stiff curled hand, that's when your listeners, that's when people realize, oh my God, it's a body. So, so yeah, I believe that that's all I got. Yee.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right, I'll try it again. It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be.
Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound in the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with a sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared, drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Sublime, I've got a question for you. How much experience do you have in the VO world?
Like 8 months, I think.
8 months? Okay. Have you landed work, or have you gone through training, coaching, anything like that?
I've landed a few roles, no formal training, anything like
Okay.
that.
Okay. You probably get a lot of compliments on the sound of your voice, don't you?
Yes,
That's
but
probably one of the more common things that people note. Like you'll join a VC, you'll say something and be like, "Holy crap!" Right?
yeah.
Okay. So the thing is all of that is manifesting in your reads in different ways. So, for example, the consistent complimenting on the sound of your voice is manifesting in you modulating it. It was
Okay.
so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. You're dropping your tone intentionally, and it sounds unnatural. It sounds uncomfortable. I can hear it throughout the entire thing because the way that you describe everything else separate from that, just talking to me one on one, that's the tone that we really want because that's much easier to follow along with. You already have the pipes, all right? You already have the sound. Your biology has blessed you with what you have. There's no reason to try and spice it up
Okay.
because what that does is it removes some of your brain power because you're focused on just doing this thing with your voice. You don't need to.
Okay.
You don't need to whatsoever. You sound great just as you are. That being said, you need to be really intentional about what people are supposed to feel and think when you're emphasizing things. So, for instance, he leaned over looking, kneeled down reaching, fell back gasping. You started getting more and more intense, but the emotion that you were communicating wasn't this kind of building dread and tension, it was anger. Unless somebody else heard differently during that section, I heard just strong notes of anger throughout that whole thing. Like you were just getting more and more mad about the situation. Um, so what you need to feel is that during that section, this particularly those those three different sentences right there with the actions that we're trying to see, that needs to be this building pit in your stomach. Like, I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to approach this. I really don't want to feel this. It needs to, you yourself need to feel a little bit of hesitation, trepidation, fear, insert, you know, I don't want to be here, whatever emotion you want to assign with that there, because that's what's building there. You're building up this, holy crap, I really don't want to be here.
Mind if I try those last three again?
It's not the last three sentences that you really had a problem with.
Everything.
No. It wasn't everything. It wasn't everything. It was just the emotional payoff with the second paragraph. You have a decent buildup. You really do. That buildup in the first paragraph and in the italicized sentences, decent buildup, but it doesn't pay off very well in the second paragraph. So what I would love to hear is just you take the second paragraph, but if you want to give yourself a lead in, with a previous with a couple of the previous sentences to put you in the right emotional state, that's perfectly fine.
couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound in the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into the pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Okay.
Try to throw some trepidation in there.
Okay, well, I'm going to open it up. But there were a few technical issues there. I'm not so worried about the replacing of words. What did you guys think of Sublime's emotional communication that time? The emotional expression throughout those lines.
For me, I would
I
like
feel
to
the
say that.
trepidation more.
Go ahead, go
Mhm.
ahead.
I definitely feel like I can sense the trepidation a lot more than the previous reads. What were you about to
Mhm.
say?
For me, I was going to say, as soon as Sublime hit the second paragraph, I was listening and I could hear the discovery, that tragic discovery, starting to build up. And for me personally, it needs a little bit more of a nudge because Sublime's voice is already there. Just a little bit more, and I believe we have a very good read that we can pack and ship.
Anyone else? Okay, so more emotional connection with the lines, right, Eyes? If I could sum up what you were saying. Okay. Um, tell me, Sublime, did that delivery feel different to you?
Sorry, I keep pressing the wrong button. Yes, yes, it did. It,
What's up? What's on your mind?
it's hard to put into words.
Okay.
Uh,
So here's the thing. Um, you shifted your focus over from the sound of your voice to specifically what you wanted to do with the text, and that markedly improved the quality of your performance. Markedly improved it. Because again, when it comes to voiceover, it's less about the vocal tone and more about doing something with a scene, seeing what's happening around you, bringing that world to life. Um, when you focused on what you were supposed to be feeling, did that allow you to see what was going on a little bit more?
it did, yes.
Okay. Okay. And that came through very, very clearly in your read. Now the thing is once you started doing the last three sentences, you went back into modulating your voice again to try to play that up. And you lost some of that emotional connection in doing so. So, how does your character feel about these last three sentences?
I mean, I'm pretty sure he's shocked to his core
Okay.
because
Don't give me pretty sures. Don't give me ums. Don't give me maybes. Just make a choice. How does your character feel about these last three sentences? About what he's seeing? You shocked? You there, Vibe?
Still here. Did you
Okay.
want me to try that again?
Yeah, just give us the last paragraph again.
Okay. From a torn or some distance?
Some distance.
All right.
Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone. The cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
I think that was absolutely your strongest read.
Yeah, much, much better. I loved it.
Yeah.
Completely invested.
Yeah. Incredibly strong read. Your deeper focus on the emotions was the ticket. It was the key. Again, man, you've already got the pipes. All right. That's a blessing. You don't have to worry about that whatsoever. But directing your focus on specifically what your character is feeling really brought out a different depth to your performance that you did not have before.
Okay.
It was fantastic.
Hu-
Truly.
100%. That was quite the change from the first read to that.
Yeah.
Well done.
Just got to do that every time now.
It takes some work and it
That's
takes
the
some
hard
practice. It takes some work and practice. You know, you just got to keep going at it. But again, your main focus should never be how do I sound. It should always be what does my character feel? What do they think? What's going on around me? And audiobooks are a marathon, so yeah, I'll agree to that. But yeah, I think we're good to go ahead and move it along because that was fan freaking tastic, and I think you did a fantastic. I think you gave us a really really great delivery on it. So Amanda, you are now up.
Okay. It was cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. There was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound in the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with the sharp, frigid air as he dug into a pocket for the cell phone. The cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Okay, opening it up. What did you think? What did you think? I swear I can English.
I thought that's what you said the first time, so maybe my ears are busted. I don't know. Um,
It's fine. It's fine.
It's all
Yeah.
busted.
It's all busted.
It's fine, Jolene.
So on on that second paragraph, some distance later, I I feel like what the first sentence and then the second sentence started off the same, and it they were the delivery was very quick and again had kind of the same pattern. So maybe try delivering the beginnings of those lines different, because of course, like, as we progress, things are getting a little bit darker, a little bit more tense, a little bit more chilly, if you will, to abuse that word today. But try varying the beginnings of those sentences. um let's see. The he leaned over looking, kneel down, that the way you delivered them was fine, but I feel like were you pantomiming it? Because if you weren't, maybe try doing that to put a little
Oh, I
bit
was
more.
pantomiming it. I was.
Okay,
I'm kinda
okay.
slightly out of it because 'cause I'm tired, but
I get it.
yeah.
Right, yeah, I don't know what time it is where you are, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
get
at
that.
10:30. I'm
Oh,
doing the
yeah,
best I can.
I got you. Um, I really loved the italicized text, like, that was excellent, like, that was that very stark contrast from the beginning to the end there, so keep
It
that.
was very nice.
Yeah, keep that
Thank
in
you.
my opinion. Just because everyone's asked, "Who are you?" Like, who are you vibing with as the narrator? Where are you coming from that perspective?
I am the runner. More specifically, the soul of the runner, because the runner would never refer to themselves in the second person. I was, like, putting myself into the scene,
I
kinda,
got you.
like,
Yeah.
reenacting the scene as it's happening, as
Okay.
if it were the present moment.
Cool.
Clear as
Gotcha.
day.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, just those little notes from me, and I'm very excited to hear your second take.
It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. There was still more light than dark at that time of day. What light there was played tricks on the eye. That looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked a few final yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with the sharp, frigid air as he dug into the pocket for the cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
Again, I really liked the delivery of the italicized, that inner monologue. Excellent. I still feel like the second paragraph, those first, and if someone wants to, challenge this, please by all means. But I feel like the beginning of both of those sentences was again still a little bit the same, and there was a little bit of like oh, I think it was like he walked the last few yards, like a little bit of word changing there. Just again, that's not minor in the audiobook sense, but in this take. So just be sure that those are there. Um, Oh, I feel like there was another thing. The what light there was played tricks on the eye. Again, just like Andrew, you did a really, really good job of inserting some foreshadowing there. Because it was quite different than the delivery of the first two lines. And it kind of I say it was jarring, but in a good way, right? Like kind of like a huh? Like, oh, okay. Like this seemed like a normal, like someone's just going jogging kind of thing. And then the way you said that brought a bit of intrigue going into the rest of it. So I really liked that a lot.
Thank you. So basically, you're saying that your biggest criticism is the way that I delivered the first two sentences in that second paragraph, correct?
Yes, yeah, yeah. The beginnings of both of them sound they're for my taste they're a little too quick and they're delivered the same. So, I'd want there to be a switch up on that second one. Maybe even like he walked the final few. Since again, he's jogging, right? We're talking about jogging, and then it goes to walking. Literally change from like a jogging pace in the first sentence to a walking pace in the next one, if that makes sense. Make that
Oh,
literal
okay.
switch. You know what I mean?
So not so much the cadence, but like the pace.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yes.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think that's it. Why don't you just go ahead and give us those sentences then? Because there was nothing else, right? Nothing else about that second paragraph that anybody felt needed to be changed? Or was it just those
Not
first two
I.
sentences? Okay.
Sounded good on this end.
Okay. So then, yeah,
Okay.
go ahead and retake those first two sentences of the second paragraph.
Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow.
Flatten it out a little bit. You're hitting walked really, really hard, and it's sticking out like a sore thumb. So you're saying he walked the
Oh,
final few
okay.
yards. No, he walked the final few yards. So keep it really keep your emotional space really tightly controlled. Don't go too high, don't go too low.
So you just want me to read, he walked the final few yards?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow.
Okay, you're still going up with slowing down with each step. Again, there's
Slowing
there's a, there's
down
a
with
certain
each step.
there's a certain emotional range that this needs to stay in. Just keep it compressed. Yeah, try to flatten all of that out. Just give me that second sentence of the second paragraph.
Okay. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow.
There we go. Because again, you're building up.
Ooh.
What was
Yeah,
your
yeah,
best take on that one? Very
yeah.
nice.
Moving into
Ooh.
that. Yep, moving into the close, whispery sound. Really, really good choice because that helps build the tension that needs to be there. So good instincts on that one.
Never
Seriously,
thought
good
about
instincts
that.
on that one. Yeah, I mean,
So, do you want me to read it from the top or wait, what were you saying?
well, I was
Somebody
gonna
said
say,
something.
yeah. So, um, all you can use whatever range of tools to communicate that. Don't think that it has to stay within a certain range just because it's like an audiobook or I don't know, corporate narration or anything like that. There is no like prescribed specific range there. There's only particular techniques. Um, and I'm not gonna. I mean, if you'd like to know more, I can give you all the information I can later. Um, but yeah, let's go ahead and put it all together. Just give us one solid read, top to bottom, with
Okay.
with everything, and then that's when we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up for everybody who wants to go afterwards.
It was so cold that no one else was running. Not at 6 a.m. It was still more light than dark at that time of day. Light there was played tricks on the eye. It looked like a body. Couldn't be. Go back. Couldn't be. Some distance later, he stopped, jogged in place, turned, and ran back. He walked the final few yards, slowing down with each step as he approached the silver mound on the snow. He leaned over, looking, kneeled down, reaching, fell back, gasping. The depths of his lungs filled with sharp, frigid air as he dug into the pocket for his cell phone, the cries for help already rising in his throat. A torn candy wrapper flapped against the toe of a frozen shoe. A gust of wind cleared drifted snow, revealing a stiff, curled hand. Dark eyes stared blankly from behind a thick cocoon of ice.
And that read brought the entire thing together.
Muy excelente.
That's
Very good. Very good.
superb.
Thank you.
Really, yeah, really good use of zone one there for sure. Really, really good use of zone one on that raid. Yeah, no, that was absolutely fantastic, and I think this is where we're going to go ahead. 3 hours and 13 minutes into a 2 hour stream, we're going to go ahead and end the workout, or at least the streamed portion of the workout. So I know that there's still some people who are here now who want to go. That does not mean that the meeting is over. So stick around. We will get to your reads. For everybody else who's watching, once again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much to our supporters over there on Coffee for helping keep the lights on and keep the channel running. If you would like to help us out, visit themiccheck.org/coffee, KO-FI, and you can get access to things like a one-on-one monthly goal session with me, as well as access to our entire script library so that you can practice and use those for whatever it is that you'd like to. But for now, again, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. If you are in Twitch and you would like to listen in, you're welcome to join back up on the Discord. And we'll see you all Saturday, which is going to be the next workout. Still audiobooks.
All right, adios.
Peace, y'all.
Bye.